All right, thanks everyone for coming to our fourth installment of the Solve Summer Academy. I am one of your community managers, Jane Zanzig. Kareem. She's muted again. Kareem's the other one. But she's here, just trust us. Okay.
My name's Hareem and I'm the other community manager.
All right. Okay, so today we're talking about building the solution. So this is where we're at in the summer. We've talked about the intro, scoping data science for good projects, how you can explore and understand the data once you get your hands on it. And then this time we're talking about actually building something. What is your approach? How do you make sure that you make the right thing? And then the two remaining sessions will be bias, fairness, and ethics in 2 weeks, and then implementation and handoff on the 27th. And then at the end of the summer, some point after the 27th, we'll have our data fest where we get to hear some of the results of the projects from the summer, but that date is still being confirmed, but we'll let you know as soon as that's solid. So what are we doing today? Today we're going to get the latest scoop on some of the Solve for Good projects. We'll hear from the City of Dallas and Child Poverty Action Lab team, who will show how they're mapping historic evictions to target outreach efforts to encourage residents to seek eviction mitigation funding. And we'll hear from the AmFam project, which is a new project using NLP to better understand and respond to the unmet needs of people who are affected by cyclones and extreme weather events. And that's in partnership with the International Water Management Institute. Then the Solve Summer Academy team will share a little bit of background on why we think building the solution is important enough to hold a whole session about. And then we'll have a few friends of the program drop some knowledge. We have Ben Brew here to talk about his experiences, starting a data consultancy and working with clients to find the right technical approach to meet their needs. And then we'll hear from Tristan, who will give us a little bit of a primer on triage, which is a tool that was developed at the Center for Data Science and Public Policy to help build and manage predictive modeling pipelines. So, without further ado, I can kick it over to Andrew for the Solve Project Drumbeat.
Okay, so as Jane said, welcome everybody to the fourth installment of the Solve Summer Academy. Kind of amazing that we're already 4 webinars in. And so I'll be giving you today's community announcements. So per usual, we have some new resources at the solveforgood.org/resources page. We've been trying to be very prudent about adding new resources to the website, and this includes some updated instructions for number 1, how to sign up as a volunteer on the Solve for Good website. So if you haven't done that yet and you would like a little bit of guidance on how, you can go to the resources page and download the new instructions for doing so. And then importantly, we also have updated the instructions for organizations to sign up and how to post a project. So you can see new and improved guidance on how to go through that process. We now have all of the recordings from the previous 3 Solve Summer Academy installments up on the Data Science for Social Good YouTube account. So we'll send out a link to that in the chat on Zoom and also over the Slack channel. So if you haven't yet checked those out or subscribed to the Data Science for Social Good YouTube channel, that's where we'll be posting the recordings from this installment and future installments. So also tomorrow, or also please make sure if you're enjoying these, please share the information about the Solve Summer Academy through your networks. So our next one will be on Thursday, August 13th at the same time, 11 a.m. Eastern. And this is going to be a super cool webinar that we'll be hosting, which is on addressing bias and fairness in predictive models, which I think is a super relevant topic for the types of things that Solve for Good is aiming to do. And you're hearing from a team that's very experienced in this. So we put a lot of effort into putting these together, and we want as many people as possible to attend. So if you don't mind sharing it through your networks, it's greatly appreciated. Again, the Solve for Good platform is open for all social good organizations to post their projects. You can just go to the homepage and there's a big button, big orange button that says post a project. So if you are from a social good organization or you know a social good organization, don't hesitate to just go ahead and go through that process. And as soon as you post that project, someone from the Solve for Good team, a project scoper, or could be myself or someone else that you'll see speaking today, will get in touch with you to talk a little bit more about your project. So we have, we reported on this a little bit last webinar, but we have over 1,000 members in our Solve for Good Slack channel. And then we have over 1,000 volunteers that have signed up on Solve for Good over the life cycle of it. So we have so many volunteers and super talented people, and we're looking always for more projects. So if you have something that you need help with and there's an opportunity to make an impact for your beneficiaries, don't hesitate to post a project on Solve for Good. To this end, tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern, we'll be hosting what's called the Project Scoper training. And this will be the first of many Project Scoper trainings. We hope to be holding these perhaps about bi-weekly. But the idea here is that if you're interested in being a project scoping volunteer, so if you're interested in being on the volunteer side about speaking with organizations on how to scope projects, and specifically what this training goes through is a day in the life of a Solve for Good project scoper. So when you're a volunteer, what can you actually expect? How do you connect with an organization through the Solve for Good platform? How do you go through the scoping process, which we have tons of resources on this. But then also some other aspects about it, like about staffing and putting together different teams for the Solve for Good projects. So if you're interested in being a project scoping volunteer, it's important to join us tomorrow for this session. And tickets are limited to 50 seats, and we'll send out the Eventbrite if you're interested in doing that. They're limited to 50 seats. So if you don't get it this week, we'll have more in the future. So don't feel like you're missing out, but also if you're interested, sign up quickly because the seats might go. And to this end, so if you've been recently to the Solve for Good website, you know there's kind of a little, there's an improvement on the homepage that kind of gives you a little bit of a state of play, the kinds of things that I've been talking about in these Solve Summer Academies about Solve for Good. So importantly, you can register for all the upcoming Solve Summer Academies. But then it also kind of gives some information on what's happening on the website right now. So just this month, we've already had over 260 new volunteers sign up. And as you can see right now, this is just taken, this screenshot was taken just earlier today. There's 4 projects that are waiting to be scoped. So that should be a little bit of motivation, motivates a little bit the project scoping training that we're hoping to do tomorrow, so that we can have volunteers that are ready and able to help scope these projects and create some positive impacts for these organizations' beneficiaries. And that's kind of everything from the community announcement side. Now today we have 2 awesome updates from different project teams. So as Jane said, we're going to hear from the Dallas Housing team and the Cyclone Amphan team. So without further ado, I will pass this off now to Tang Yi, who's going to present on give a little update about what's happening on the Mitigating Eviction Risks for Residents in the City of Dallas project.
Just if I can jump in really quickly before you start. Would love to hear in the chat from all attendees. Say hello, say where you're joining from, and then we'll have Q&A with both of these project partners after they share. So you can start throwing out any questions you have in the chat right now. Thanks.
Hi everyone, I'm Teng. For this project, we are trying to collaborate with the CPAL and State of Dallas to help them reduce the eviction rates for residents in the city of Dallas. And here are the other girls who are working on this project. So for this project, what we're trying to do is to help with the eviction. For a lot of cases in Dallas, when, for example, landlords want to increase the rent, they will try to kick out the tenants on false ground. This is where the eviction that we don't want to see. So for this project, our goal is to minimize the number of people who are evicted from their homes and to maximize the number of people that we can assist, for example, by some funds or by connecting them to other city services. So how to do this? We got the data of the eviction records in the past. So the first step we want to do is to know where the eviction are taking places in a finer granularity. And the second step is to understand what are the factors that are related to these evictions, so that maybe in the future we can predict where is having a higher risk to have this eviction. So far, we have explored the data and cleaned the data, and we also have geocode the addresses so that we can understand where the cases are happening. So to directly jump in what we have already got, let's look at some visualizations. So for now, we visualize all the records on maps so that it gives us a very general idea about where the evictions are happening. For this map, we combine data from 2017 to 2019 and visualize all the evictions on the map. But after we see the map, we are asking, we look at it and what information we can get, what information we want to deliver to the audience of this map. We feel like, okay, so maybe the first thing that comes to people's mind is, okay, what is the raw number of the cases in each area? And the second question may be, although the raw number could be different, the population in different areas could also be different. So maybe the density is important. And another question is, what's the change over time? Till now, we have tried to answer these questions. For example, we also map the eviction records by years so that we want to see what's the change over time. Are there like evictions spread differently over years? Is some area has an increased rate of eviction? From the right map, we can see that the pattern is a little different. For example, in the right top part, the green part, the green dot represent the records in 2019. The red one represent 2018, and the yellow one represent 2017. We can see from the red top part that in 2019, the records seems to be a little less than the previous years, but we also need like more detailed and more sophisticated analysis to demonstrate where exactly the case are changing. We also separately map out. We try to explore different possibilities to map out these eviction records, and when we separately map out, we can see that it actually seems very similar. The basic one, the basic pattern is very similar. It just at different locations. Sometimes the pattern is a little bit different. For example, if you look at here on the bottom, the pattern seems to be different over years. This is what we have just got. Next, we're trying to explore what exactly we can convey from these maps. As I just mentioned, for example, we can convey the increased rate of different areas. We can also map out the density of different areas. We also want to connect these records with other predictors, or we want to explore some correlations from factors to the eviction records. For example, one idea is to map out the school mobility. So we can separate the school mobility in different areas into high and low. And then on different areas of high and low, we give the area of different colors. And then we map out the eviction records. From that, we can have a basic idea about whether the school mobility can have some correlation with the eviction records. So that's what we have just got. If you have any questions or any suggestions, we are happy to discuss.
And we have one question from the audience. They're asking, what software did you use to build these maps?
Oh, we use QGIS. So it's a geodatabase.
Cool.
You can also use ArcGIS.
Did you find that the scope has evolved since you started working on this project?
For this project, it might be a little bit different from the general ones because this project already been probably, I think on most part is already project scoped. So we didn't change too much on this one.
Cool.
One more question for you. Have you found anything interesting or surprising while you've done your initial data exploration?
Yes. So one thing that is surprising is about the data format. This always happens in different projects, but in this particular project, this is the first time that I have seen a very unusual timestamp format. So at the very beginning, we were thinking, oh, what this is? This is a 5-digit timestamp. And then we clarify with our partner, and we see, okay, they actually have some have some reasoning behind this format. The first digit is the year, and then the second and the third digits are months and then the dates. So this is one thing. We also find some other thing that is interesting. So for example, they give us different sources of the eviction records, and so that we can compare and validate which one is more reliable.
We have another question for you from Hannah Gorman, who wants to know if COVID-19 will change eviction patterns a lot, and how does that affect the scope?
That's a very good question, and that's the question we also want to answer from this project. So to do this, we asked the partner to collect data of before and after the COVID-19 so that we can compare. Yeah, but this is still in process.
Okay, and the data, is it, Momin wants to know if it's spatial point data or is it by address? How is it structured?
They gave us the address data.
Okay.
So this is also like publicly available, but for us, we need to change the address to map the address to longitude and latitude so that we can map the data and use the data.
Okay, awesome.
One question was, this is preempting kind of next session 2 weeks from now, is your project goals were, around efficiency and effectiveness, maximize number of people. What about fairness or equity? Do you care if only all people in the same neighborhood get help and everybody gets ignored, or racial, gender, income status, things like that? Do you care about that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, we do care about that. That's why we want to collect the ACS data so that we can understand to what level the eviction is connected to the demographic data.
Got it.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We look forward to hearing more about how the project turns out. And then we can turn it over to Project Amphan. I think we have Ansel and Michelle here.
So my name is Ansel Creighton. I was a 2018 ESSG fellow in Chicago, also like Tom. And yeah, I am the project manager for Team Amphan. So our team consists of obviously myself as project manager, but 4 other data scientists, Jared Ross, Joao Fonseca, Kanaf Mera, and Marcelo Sandoval Castaneda. And our goal is to collaborate with the International Water Management Institute, which we refer to as IMI, to identify and better understand the experience and needs of vulnerable societies affected by natural disasters using social media data. More concretely, we would like to understand the impact of natural disasters, understand the impact of natural disasters through the voices of those impacted, and not necessarily funneled through sort of experts. And our main goal here is to produce an analysis using social media data, using NLP, potentially other ML tools that allow us to sort of meet this goal. And then once we sort of have this analysis produced, we would sort of collaborate with them to disseminate through different mediums. Whether one is thinking about a web tool that will be useful for policymakers, aid organizations, the governments, and research institutes, as well as research papers. So we're focusing our main use case here is going to be on Cyclone Amphen. This was a major storm that was developed over the Bay of Bengal. It made landfall on May 20th, 2020. And it impacted many different countries. It was India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and Bhutan. It's been noted as the most damaging storm in the history of the Indian Ocean, causing billions of dollars in damage, many deaths. It was ravaging agricultural lands and also displacing many people from their homes and forcing them into sort of crowded shelters. And you could think about all of this happening while each of the respective governments are trying to manage their response to COVID-19. So an event like this is exactly what our analysis is meant to target. Some of the things that we've been doing thus far, so we're just ending our second week. So a major part obviously has been data. Our main source of data is going to be the Twitter API, using a premium API. Obviously things happen. You have to learn to expect the unexpected in these projects. So we've had a few issues, which we can go into detail about later. Done some initial EDA, and we've been sort of brainstorming how to process these tweets. So our queries are in 4 different languages. So we have English, Hindi, Bengali, and Odia. So we have to think about how to manage that, as well as there being some additional languages in our data set, and then also just cleaning the text itself. Another huge part of what we've been doing has been sort of refining our scope. So we've had sort of many discussions with the partner team and other indie researchers to work to narrow down our research questions and basically help them understand what is possible with data science, and also sort of help us understand where data science will be useful for the problems that they would like to address. So one example is actually today, we just got off our partner call, kind of like right before this, and our team gave an NLP overview to the partner side, and we covered many different techniques, and for each technique we had around like 2 examples of how we can apply it to this project. So I think that's able to help them understand many different use cases, but also sort of get their ideas flowing about maybe how they can use it, and get back to us with feedback there. Another thing is data. There has been a transition in our scope around data as well. So originally the project started more as how is social media useful, or how can we use social media to understand these needs. But now we're sort of transitioning and trying to ask the question, is social media useful? And if so, to what extent? So we're now starting to consider other data sources as well, flood data, news outlets, other things. And then finally, I think it's related to point 2 would be the personal experience. So we have the benefit of having a team member who is also based in Kolkata, India, where an experience from firsthand, as well as we have some contacts on the partner side that have also experienced it. But I think this has also shaped our scope, made us consider a few different things, like there being internet outages, days following the cyclone. So maybe the spike in tweets is not exactly from the vulnerable society that we're looking to identify. So we need to think a little bit more carefully about what our sample, or who our sample represents, and exactly what information we're extracting from it. And then there's also, of course, a political element behind news about Amphen as well. So I think now I'll pass it to Michelle, who's the digital innovations analyst at IMI, and she'll be able to explain more about the background.
Sure. Thanks, Ansel. Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle Ng. As Ansel said, I'm a digital innovations analyst at the International Water Management Institute. I'm based in Sri Lanka. So IMI is a research for development institute working to promote a water secure world. So we have over 100 researchers who specialize in hydrology, in economics, agriculture, governance, gender, and a lot more in 13 offices across Africa and Asia. And I think a few different things brought us to Solve for Good in this particular project on Cyclone Amphen. Overall, as Jane mentioned earlier, we want to better match people's needs following extreme weather events with context-specific responses. And we became curious about how online data, such as Twitter posts and news headlines, especially local and regional news headlines, can serve as an input in decision-making processes, whether by donors, whether by governments, humanitarian aid NGOs, etc. We also know that many people think of extreme weather events in terms of biophysical concepts like wind and rain, despite the fact that extreme weather events happen to people and have really huge, profound social, political, and economic dimensions to them as well. So we're hoping that this online data can help to characterize the more human experiences of Cyclone Amphan as well. And we're hoping to test this methodology on one of the most extreme weather events of 2020 so far. As Ansel mentioned again, we're especially curious about how well this data actually represents affected people. And so we're interested in kind of the inclusivity aspect of online data. And maybe further down the line, we're hoping we can compare our analysis of the online data with ground truthing data, whether through like government's needs assessments or NGOs data, or maybe we could apply for funding and try to do some field work ourselves. So I think that sums it up from my side. I'm really looking forward to working with Solve for Good and Ansel and the other data scientists. Thanks.
Thanks, Ansel and Michelle. Would love to hear a little bit more, Ansel, you mentioned about pulling Twitter data in 4 different languages. Have you come across any specific challenges with integrating all of that together?
Yeah, so one issue is that sort of right after Amphan, there were a few other cyclones that happened. So we did notice that there was contamination in our data. So it did sort of help us. We needed to refine a lot of our queries. So that was one sort of issue that we had there. And we sort of narrowed it down to there just being one, English language was quite noisy in general. So we needed to have more strict rules on English, and also in Hindi, because the sort of following cyclones were more in India. So we did notice a little bit more noise there. So that was one issue. Another was obviously technical, our API. So our understanding was that we would have access to 1.25 million tweets a month, but turns out at the base level of API, it's really only like 50,000. You can only make 100 requests per month, and each one you can get 500 tweets. So that was a big difference. And now we're sort of like trying to manage that and think about ways around that as well. But yeah, so that would be sort of our issues that we ran into with data.
I know it's really common that, what data you think you'll have from the beginning is often not what you end up with. So it's you really never trust it until you actually have it on your machine. Do we have any other questions from the audience or from other panelists?
There's a question from Janya, which I think, well, it's a comment on a question, but it's interesting. So their question / comment is, in a country where the government may have tight control over what people can post online, or there may be some censorship, how does the media data match reality? Is that something that you guys are considering?
We haven't really addressed this problem yet, so we could actually think about this a little bit more. Is there an issue? Are there things we're not seeing because of that? But we have sort of generally come to the conclusion that we don't think that social media data is going to give us the full picture. We're likely missing some aspect of the problem there. So that's what we're working toward now, is trying to look at more data sources, things like that. But yeah, that's actually a good point. We should probably discuss that.
And then with that, I think we move on to our next segment, because I don't think we have any further questions, but if you guys have, keep adding them to the chat. And Raid also posted that if you have ideas or suggestions for these projects, maybe types of analyses that they can do, you can go to the project discussion page and add them so they'll persist after the webinar, and also other people who may not be on the webinar today can participate once they see the webinar online or participate in Slack.
And I just wanted to make one comment as well about this project. So after this project was posted, so it became open for volunteers, and they were able to find volunteers that fit well for this project, such as Kanav, who's actually from this area, as Ansel mentioned during the project, who's actually was from the region affected by Cyclone Amphan. So all of this is to say, keep your eye on the Solve for Good website and look for projects that are accepting volunteers, because processes are now in place where you can apply to these projects and become a volunteer on them.
All right, thanks. Both project teams, great to hear about the excellent work that you're doing. We can move along to our next segment, as Reem said. We want to just give a quick motivation behind why we thought it was so important to talk about building the solution. Ostensibly, everyone that's here today is interested in using data for good, right? So that means we want to have some kind of positive impact. So we have a pretty strong opinion that means that you need to make something that's useful and usable. And you need to do that in partnership with people who are doing the work on the ground. So one thing that working with Raid over the years has drilled into my head is that the kind of hackathon approach can be problematic, right? When there are just data people doing data stuff by themselves. A lot of times that just ends up with you make something that you think might be interesting, or you make another map or something, but you don't know how anyone would use it, right? So I think the biggest thing that we are trying to motivate here is that people should be working with project partners and keeping them closely involved throughout the process.